Hey James.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Where are you? Are you in California still? Did I miss you?
Yeah,
Are
I'm
you
still down
gone?
in, yeah, I'm in SoCal right now. I'm in San Diego.
Oh, amazing. Well, I mean, I would love to see you in real life, not just IG Live, so maybe we could work that out.
Yeah, planning on going up to LA at some point in the next
Cool.
couple weeks, months. So definitely we'll swing something so I can hang out with y'all.
Yeah, so where are you moving to California? You're currently based elsewhere?
Yeah, I've been able to work remote for the past, I guess, over a year now, which is kind of crazy. So
Amazing.
typically I'm in Washington, D.C. or just like across the border in Maryland.
Amazing.
But I've been kind of like all over the place for the past couple months,
I mean,
year, I
honestly,
guess.
it's like one of the biggest benefits and bonuses to anyone that's considering, going freelance or working for themselves, like the ability to work remotely and to, you probably have your whole setup, your software, your computer, and just drag that around and go.
Yeah, I just built like a new computer back in December, and then I came out here for a while. So like I had to kind of scramble to figure out a situation. I ended up getting like a laptop that's a pretty good
Oh,
workstation, but
perfect. Perfect.
yeah.
I feel like is it hard for you to work off of a laptop? I feel like that's maybe not heavy enough for you, is it?
Yeah, I adapted to it for a while. Like that's kind of what I started with, like getting into 3D. I was doing like all my work on this like really old gaming PC laptop.
Oh, cool.
And then finally back in December, I ended up building this new rig, which was amazing. And it's gotten me like so much better with stuff, so much quicker. But
Amazing.
yeah, I mean, I guess I can kind of like adapt to it pretty well. I use like render farms sometimes too, so I can kind of
Yeah.
like kick my projects up to that to work.
That probably helps a lot. So we're getting everyone joined here with us. James Tralie is one of the amazing artists over here at H Plus Creative. I feel like your work is really known for its kind of moody, light-based, kind of dreamy, inside-outside environment locations. But I would love to hear a little bit of just like I don't know, your background, where you're at, maybe a couple words that you think define your current practice, just to kind of give everyone an intro if they haven't seen your work. And if you don't follow James, of course, give him a follow. You can find him through our page or obviously through him. But yeah, I'd love to hear just kind of where you're at with work and life and give a little intro of yourself.
Yeah, I come from kind of like a strange mixed background. So in undergrad at university, I studied geophysics actually, so very much like a
Amazing.
scientific focus. But I've always kind of held this interest for film and animation. So for like the longest time, I've been trying to kind of combine the two so that I don't have to like sacrifice one for the other ever. And
Right.
so I
I
ended up
mean,
finding this,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead. I was just gonna say the film stuff. I mean, tying into your, I don't want to give too much away about NASA, but I think that that's so cool.
Yeah, it's been like nice to be able to kind of still keep that practice up and like have that scientific base to like a lot of the work that I do in animation. But yeah, I guess like since the beginning of the pandemic, I've gotten like really invested in learning 3D even more than I kind of already did. Like I dabbled with it a bit before, like in university. And I started doing animation like many years ago with Legos, doing like stop motion when I was like
Oh,
in
fun,
elementary school, middle school.
fun.
So kind of like I've always been interested in animation, but have never really known exactly like what direction I wanted to go with it. And so I ended up at NASA. I've been working there for almost 2 years now, and it's
So
just been a
cool.
really cool place to kind of, experiment a lot with different missions and really do a lot of cool work for all kinds of different planetary science missions and discoveries.
Yeah,
And I guess like
your work has that planetary vibe to it. That's a good way to describe it.
yeah, it's kind of bled a bit into like the stuff you see here
Hmm.
on Instagram, which is like very different from the stuff I do, like I guess in my day to day typically. But it's been like kind of a nice like relaxation for me, almost making the stuff that you see here on Insta. It's like an opportunity for me to both practice the software outside of work, kind of learning things a bit more, but then also just kind of like making places I'd like to live, I guess, like designing slowly my dream home, and then kind
Totally.
of sharing that with you. And people seem to really resonate with that, which has been awesome to see.
I
So
mean,
it's been cool.
3D is such a cool place for like the dream homes, dreamscapes, kind of like otherworldly realities, fantasy stuff. Do you dream? Are your dreams like your work? Do you ever have
Yeah,
work that or dreams that looks like these environments?
yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's kind of this like nostalgia with it, if you will. Like, I don't know, there's places that I've been like growing up that I'll kind of like remember. Like, I don't know, like
Mm-hmm.
the pool we used to go to when I was like a little
Cool.
kid, or like the beach resort town that was like a kind of little small place that I've been going to ever since I've been like a little kid growing up, or just like random memories that will kind of come back. And
Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
like I don't know, like a combination of a lot of different dreams and places I've been, places I've seen, places that maybe don't even exist that I've just kind of
Yeah.
experienced,
I mean,
that I just
art is
try to
cool to
create.
tap into that. You know, art kind of pulls out whatever subconscious, you know, visceral kind of photos that you have in your brain, places. I know that, you know, obviously our subconscious is kind of a mix of experience and aspiration and dream and all of that. But yeah, it definitely has a cool nostalgic and like fantasy and I don't know, like really calming vibe to it. But is your day-to-day work like stressful or is it a lot? Like your landscapes are so like serene and calm. Are they is the process meditative for you or is your whole life just meditative?
I mean, I guess I kind of don't know what not being busy is like. I like to keep myself busy always, like kind of always working on something. So I don't know, like just outside of work, I kind of continue that
Mm-hmm.
energy working with stuff. But yeah, the work I do day to day, I really enjoy it very much because it is that mix of science and film that I love so much, and I get to work directly with the mission teams and
So
communicate their
cool.
research. And they
So
give me
cool.
like a lot of creative freedom throughout like the entire process, which I didn't expect, I guess, going in initially. But I'm able to write, you know, direct, edit, animate, and then work on post production and even distribution of my work too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been kind of cool to just see the whole pipeline and kind of see what I like and what I don't like necessarily, but like learn new things and kind of keep growing, all while explaining like, I don't know, new discoveries we have from like Mars or exoplanets. It's
Totally.
kind of crazy.
I mean,
So
speaking of space, what is your take on Bezos's space trip that's coming up? Do
it's
you guys talk about
interesting.
that over there? Do you like talk shit about that? Do you like think it's cool?
Yeah, I mean, we work a bit with some of like the outside companies. Like we do quite a bit of work with SpaceX and Boeing, who like will supply our you know, thrusters and stuff for our new rockets and stuff that we're sending up,
Hmm.
or they provide stuff to the ISS. So yeah, definitely we talk a bit about like the commercial partners. I still feel like I'm very invested in like NASA's development of going to the moon because
Totally.
I feel like in the next like 10 years, I feel like we're going to have a kind of a sustainable presence on the moon and also be able to just have, you know, commercial flights up to the moon and then beyond to Mars. I
Totally.
work with one mission called the Artemis mission, which is
Mm.
like a huge effort to get us back to the moon, build a moon base, and then harvest hydrogen from the water that's on actually the south pole of the moon, use that
Mm.
for fuel. So I think that's like really promising to me. Stuff like the Bezos thing, I guess, definitely gets a lot of people interested in space who wouldn't necessarily be, you know, as
Yeah,
interested in it
that's a
before,
good
if
point.
you will.
Have we only walked on the moon one time? Or have we
It's been a
walked on it
couple.
many
There's
times? Okay, okay, okay. You
there's
would know.
Apollo 11 through 17, and I think five of those were successful getting to the moon. One of them was not. Apollo 13. There's that movie with Tom Hanks about it.
Mm.
But yeah, it's been a couple times, and I think we're pretty close to like heading back there too. Like we've done a lot of different tests recently, just
That's so
launching with
cool.
different things. So it's
So
been cool
cool.
to kind of see those developments. I kind of believe in it more in that. Like I like, I don't know, the more the people focused side of it and kind of just empowering, you know, the everyday person
Totally.
to get interested in space. That's kind of what I try to do with my work too. Like I want my videos to inspire anyone to believe that space is cool and that you
Totally.
can do research in this field. So
I mean, yeah, I see a lot of amazing questions coming in. We're gonna just do a little dialogue here for, you know, next another 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions at the end for everyone. But for anyone that's just joining us, James is also an amazing resource for anything space related, which is, we have a NASA guy here. So take advantage of that too. 3D, NASA, you know, all around knowledge. I do want to talk about your work a little bit. I want to talk about, you know, the visions that you have, where you want to take your work, maybe how long you've been doing it, some of the nitty gritty, you know, software stuff, maybe dream clients. Let's hear, I don't know, let's hear a little bit about where you're at, where you want to go, you know, maybe why you do it, what you love.
yeah, I guess people would be surprised that I started this like pretty recently, like within the past like year and a half, like really doing 3D stuff seriously. And it's just been cool to kind of see the growth so quickly. I feel
Totally.
like I still have so much to learn. And that's, I think, the beauty of 3D in general is that there is like almost like endless possibilities with it. So it's been cool to kind of head that direction. I feel like ultimately I want to keep doing this kind of work. And I really love, being able to work with such cool clients outside of the work I do day to day. And just find new ways to explain their work, their discoveries, their projects, dabble in new media, just keep learning. And yeah, I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. I think like keeping that up and still being able to keep up the work I do for NASA is kind of a dream of mine, because it's nice to have both aspects of the work I do and kind of have that creative freedom outside of it to kind of dabble in new projects and experiment with things.
I've been having these conversations recently about, not these conversations, but other ones about like the relationship between 3D and just reality, and how like your work would lend itself so well to just like a beautiful, real installation, you know? And like where, I mean, I guess when you build it out in 3D, you're digitally, physically building out a 3D environment that actually could just be reality somewhere, with the lighting, with the light breeze, and with some real plants and stuff. I don't know, I think that installation work would be so cool for so many of the 3D artists, just to like actually create that interactive experience place.
Yeah, that's a huge goal of mine. I feel like I'm kind of heading that way slowly. I'm starting to like make more like
so
VR
cool.
things, like to like immerse yourself in it. And then the next step, I love going to like IKEA, like just looking around at like the different stuff that's there.
Big spaces like that have the capabilities to just like build out a space, or when I think of it, I think of like the crazy indoor ski slopes or whatever in Japan, or the crazy art fairs where people do have the budget and the logistical know-how to set up and install indoors like that. But that would be so cool for your work.
There's the airport, I think it's in Thailand, I want to say, or Singapore, where it's like huge like waterfall kind of flowing into like this greenscape. Like doing something like that would be so cool, like being able to design a natural space.
So your work, I mean, when you picked up 3D, obviously your work has happened really fast. Has that just been your dedication to learning it? Has it been your interest? Do you work after NASA hours? What's kind of been your key to just how fast everything has gone?
What I think is so cool about the 3D community is how many resources there are that are available. It's kind of overwhelming almost, how many tutorials and stuff are out there. But I think like learning a lot from just other creators, joining the community, asking questions, and then just my personal practice too. I'm very inspired by like the everyday work that a lot of the other 3D artists do. Like I know a couple people for H+ as well do everyday renders as well.
It's a grind. It's a grind. Have you done everydays?
I have, if you will. Like I'll make them like just for myself. I don't always release the stuff I do every day, but I try like every day to at least create something.
Yeah, a little bit every day.
Perfect. Yeah, and then like I'll make mistakes, I'll learn what not to do, and I'll kind of grow from that. I'll have projects that will like I'll start months ago, and then I'll like revisit with fresh eyes and kind of take it a different way with new skills, new knowledge that I've learned, and kind of keep iterating on stuff like that. And I just kind of keeping up the grind and just putting my stuff out there too to get feedback, I think has been super useful too. And just kind of building off of that, I've started to kind of make tutorials myself too, which just kind of helps me think a different way about things too, like how I would teach it to other people, kind of almost reinforces the knowledge that I have of it, and like teaches me new things. It's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't, maybe know this initially, but this is like, I guess, another approach to do it. So it's been cool to kind of have that as well.
Yeah, I mean the community and just learning, I think, through tutorials is super important, and offering those tutorials is super valuable, because that's literally how I hear that most people kind of learn just the techniques and the software and learn the way around. It's really a self-taught thing still, and the tutorials absolutely. I think are amazing. So is that something that you plan on to keep doing, is developing your YouTube channel and putting out tutorials and kind of teaching the things that have helped you, or the the workarounds or the secrets or whatever?
Yeah, it's been, I think, pretty successful so far. The feedback I've gotten from it has been pretty cool. Like I think the most rewarding thing for me as a creator when I see people who follow my tutorials like post something that they made either following the tutorial or inspired by the tutorial online, and then saying like, hey, you got me inspired to learn 3D. I mean, that's
so
like
cool.
really cool, like kind of bringing more people in, kind of shepherding, you know, the 3D community and making it happen. I think that's really exciting for me to see that. There's so many possibilities with it and everyone kind of takes it their own way, but you know, just even teaching a couple skills to someone new is I think really valuable for me, and always, you know, makes me feel happy as a creator to have that kind of community aspect.
Yeah, that give back, that fulfillment. I mean, that's important, you know, obviously. What's your idea process like? How do you visualize the environments that you create or the themes? Like, do you have sketchbooks? Do you do digital drafts? Is it just kind of like, you know, moment to moment based where you start working and it kind of develops?
I feel like I always start with music, actually. So that's why, like, when I work with musicians, it's like the dream collaboration for me, because I always like, I'll have their song on loop and then I'll just go for like a run or like a walk outside, or work out. And like, while I'm kind of, you know, moving around and observing the environments around me, I kind of get inspired by that almost, and then kind of go back to the computer and start to build things out, block things out in 3D. I go on a lot of photo walks. I talk about this a lot, I think, in tutorials. It's like very much what inspires me to do stuff is just going out and like seeing exactly how an environment exists in real life, kind of how light interacts with the environment. And then kind of drawing from that, I kind of build out my own places and spaces. So yeah, that's, I think, the inspiration.
Isn't it cool how like just regular things like light can be so inspiring? I get that too, you know, just I have a dog and I walk a lot. I feel like I'm just always moving. I'm just like always looking, you know, around at the little things. But like, you know, every now and then, like, there'll just be like one single rose and I'm like, that's so fucking pretty. Like,
it's weird how that works.
Regular, simple, kind of natural, you know, early light, late light, you know, like that is super inspiring. Just kind of like getting out and noticing the small things, but then taking those small things and building them in such a gorgeous, dreamy way that you do in your, you know, naturescapes, that it's like a reminder that, you know, just the beautiful, simple pleasures that exist outside, you know, it's like your work is a really nice, like, simple pleasure to it, I think, which people probably really appreciate. I do.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like even once I start going into like the 3D software, just like with basic objects and seeing how the light interacts with like a cube or something, I don't know, even that just like oddly inspires me, like just the light angle and how it interacts. It's just, yeah, it's cool. It's weird how that's so inspirational.
Totally. For the software nerds out there, do you have any favorite lighting techniques or, you know, render programs that really help your process?
I use Redshift a lot for the stuff I do, and also Blender too. Like, I'm a Blender nerd. I've been using that for quite a while now, and that's what I teach, I guess, the most in. But with Redshift, there's so much you can do really quickly, with volumetrics especially. And all these different render passes that you can add into, which just really makes the stuff look beautiful. You can actually do like physically based caustics too, which I always love experimenting with and seeing like how, you know, glass puts out such cool reflections and refractions. It's really, really cool. So just kind of playing around with that. I think Redshift is huge, but even in Blender too, you can still do some pretty crazy things. I think Octane works with Blender a bit too. I've done a bit of work with that.
Yeah, the cult of Blender is big. Cult of Blender for sure.
It's a real thing. Yeah, it's kind of scary almost. Like, I feel like they all grab their pitchforks when people start talking about like Maya or something. But yeah, it's interesting.
That's funny. What is your YouTube channel under? Is it just your name?
It's just my name. Yeah, James Tralie. If you just search me up, you'll see it there. I think I have it linked in my bio too here on Instagram, so if people are looking for it there.
Perfect. Yeah, great resource. Obviously, another amazing tutorial resource here, having James. I actually want to dip back into what we were talking about with music and kind of wrap my head around that a little bit more. Like, do you listen to music when you create? Do you know, what would be like this? Do you have a current soundtrack of music that you think like defines your work? Do you have favorites, you know, playlists? Do you build playlists?
Oh, absolutely. I've got a whole bunch of like themed ones, like ones for like workouts, ones for relaxation, like lo-fi chill ones. Cool. Also, I love like TV movie scores, so I've got like a whole bunch, like Mr. Robot, the score for that. Oh, yeah. Huge fan of that. If I just want to kind of rage out, like the soundtrack from Doom, if you've ever played that video game.
Totally.
Just like really good, like hard rock, punk rock, just so good. So
Cool.
kind of depending on the vibe of the work, I'll kind of play different songs, but I feel like I always default back to Mr. Robot, kind of this like ethereal, driving sounding techno music.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, your work in itself, I feel like, is just I could visualize or, audibly imagine just the soundtrack to it and, how well that would pair. Do you ever work with audio artists to like build, I don't know, sounds for the pieces that you do personally?
Yeah, sometimes like I've collaborated with a couple musicians, also for NASA stuff too. We're
Oh,
actually
cool.
hosting a contest right now for one of the missions I'm on, where we've released like a kind of like this soundscape, if you will, for this mission, and we're asking musicians to kind of be inspired by that and create sound that will kind of pair well with the work that we're doing for this mission.
Cool.
So we do kind of stuff like that. But yeah, it's cool, and I have a music background myself actually as well. Like growing up, I played violin for the longest time too.
Oh,
Um,
amazing. You are just
so
so wildly versed in so many different cool things. I love that.
it helps to kind of just explore a lot of different things and just kind of draw on, I guess, different
Totally.
passions. And I'd like to get back into it. I haven't been able to practice for a while, but I still very much love, listening to orchestral pieces, and it's just really cool to have that as well, and kind of be able
Cool.
to like relate a bit to musicians. Like when I'm working with them, I like to understand their process as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes often a black box, I feel like, if you're getting feedback from someone who doesn't understand the 3D, kind of workflow, or if similarly you're working with a musician who, they're not really as good at communicating what they're doing on their end to kind of build out a piece. It's nice when there's just that synergy and you're able to kind of both understand the workflow. And I've had recently a couple great collaborations where I just feel like that it really meshes super well. And it's just so cool to kind of have that dialogue and both really be in lockstep, understanding the process of the other person.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, your work obviously just with the vibe that it gives off lends itself so well to like the orchestral kind of, symphony sounds. I could totally picture. I've been to a couple outdoor concerts where it's like, outdoor on a hill and it's the lights and it's like, the symphony stuff. That's kind of where some of your work belongs. That would be really cool to pair with, for
Absolutely.
a live experience. Now that we're
Yeah, let's keep that in
hopefully
mind. I
doing
like
that
that.
again. We call a shout out to LA Philharmonic or, the orchestras out there. I think that would be amazing.
That would be awesome.
So what were you doing before, I mean, I guess before NASA, were you doing more video producing then?
I was a student actually, but yeah, in the work I was doing, some internships in film production,
Cool.
advertising industry. I did a documentary series after my freshman year of college with the French Discovery Channel
Okay.
for a couple months, which was really cool. I feel like that kind of taught me the production workflow and
Yeah.
was what kind of got me inspired to do, I guess, more that side of things post
Yeah.
grad.
So you
Um,
were always big into kind of like film and video and stuff. Do you have a favorite handful of, I don't know, without saying do you have a favorite movie, do you have a favorite movie or movies that like inspire you the most?
Oh, absolutely. Christopher Nolan, anything Christopher Nolan
Cool.
is huge inspiration for me. I think Interstellar is probably my favorite movie of
Oh
all
yeah,
time,
that's
but
a cool
I
one.
also like some like French indie films too. There's this one called Amélie, which is one of my, I think,
Oh
all-time
yeah,
favorite movies.
haven't seen that in a while. Totally.
It's,
That's
yeah, I
worth a
always come back to that
rewatch.
one just for the
Cool.
editing and just the pacing and just so intriguing to watch.
Cool. Cool.
Um,
Cool.
I'm trying to think as well. There's yeah, just so many good movies. But yeah, Chris Nolan, I think his work also with Hans Zimmer too, with the soundtrack, just always so good.
Cool. I'm gonna ask you a couple more cues and then we'll open it up to a Q&A. We've received some inquiries down here on the bottom.
Oh
So
yeah,
if anyone wants to chime in, send me or James a question, actually probably send it to me since I'm hosting. We'll go ahead and open it up in a little bit. But there was one that came earlier. I guess what are your goals? What are your creative goals? Like let's say for the next year.
wow, yeah, that's a good question. I kind of just like, I guess, riding the waves, seeing where stuff takes me. I guess I don't really necessarily have expectations for where it will go ultimately. It's just been kind of crazy to see the growth and the clients that I'm working with. But I just kind of want to keep working with, bigger and better projects and
Totally.
more musicians too. Like there's always so many cool people I think would be my dream collaborations. I don't know, just like continuing to get my content out there and more people seeing it. It's always a goal of mine to find new
Totally.
ways to communicate the work I do for NASA, but also for the freelance stuff, kind of getting my stories out there. Yeah.
When you were starting out, did you look up to any artists in particular? Like, do you have favorite artists that are similar to your work in 3D work, or, totally not similar, painters, illustrators? Was there any artist that really like kind of inspired your jump into getting into 3D more?
That's a good question. I think like actually seeing some of the tutorials that people were putting out, like I'm a big fan of the School of Motion stuff that they do, like
Totally.
EJ has some friends. I think I watched a lot of his videos and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like I want to get to the point where I understand the software like that well enough to be able to kind of give it back. And I guess just kind of seeing that work and seeing the projects that people were putting out, like the intro sequences from Imaginary Forces, that company, for shows like Westworld or Game of Thrones, like those title sequences, I'm like, I want to know how to do that. I mean, that is like absolutely incredible. Just like understanding that process was kind of a goal of mine, I guess, setting out.
Yeah.
And there's like, I guess, no one tutorial that shows you how to like make the Game of Thrones title sequence. And so when you boot up the software, you look at like Cinema 4D, it's like, oh my God, there's so many menus, it's so overwhelming. But it was kind of that challenge of like seeing that menu and being like, all right, well, how do I digest all of this? How do I then master all of this? And then kind of keep going and continuing to learn. I guess that was like the inspiration.
Totally. Is there anything specific that you want to learn more just for the sake of your own work? Do you want to, I don't know, is there any like skills or directions that you're really hoping to kind of get in your wheelhouse?
I think simulations are a big one. Kind of getting better with that. I've now got a computer with a lot more RAM that can kind of handle, some of the caches and bakes of the simulations. And then also VR. I've been doing a lot of work for NASA in VR stuff. I released this video last year, kind of putting yourself on an asteroid and like looking around in 360 VR. But doing more stuff like that, maybe even making like a video game type thing with the renders that I do, like allowing you to walk around. Kind of like Myst. It's like one of the first ever like 3D video games.
Okay, cool. Super
like
cool.
allowing you to kind of walk around, interact with the spaces would be really cool, I think, to do.
Do you do modeling at all? Do you do your own modeling at all?
Quite a bit, yeah. I feel like I do tap into some assets and stuff for like nature things, but I try to do a little bit. Like doing more sculpting would be cool as well, like with ZBrush. I've been trying to learn that too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you spend time with video games? Are you a gamer?
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. I'm not, but I'm curious because I feel like those worlds are so parallel and there's so much, probably amazing stuff out there in the game world too.
Yeah, I've got like some weird, I guess, classical video game taste. Like I love like a lot of games from LucasArts from like a while ago. Like there's this whole series of games called Monkey Island that they made that were like these like puzzle game type things where you played as like this character kind of exploring all these like island tropical environments. So that's why like I'm inspired a lot by the artwork from that game series. They also made this one called Grim Fandango where you were playing as like the Grim Reaper in this like kind of purgatory.
Oh, that sounds cool.
It was really cool too. And then
I was gonna say I don't know if I've ever really seen any character based stuff that you've done. Do you ever pull in, characters or animals or people? I don't know if I ever have seen any.
I feel like I don't do it that much. Even with the photography that I did before starting the 3D, I feel like I was very much like environment focused just because I feel like I do that best. I always struggle, I feel like, to capture people well.
Totally.
So
I mean, it's one of the hardest things because we know what they look like so much.
Yeah. If something's off, it's uncanny valley. It's like, it's tough to kind of, operate that way. I feel like it's always hard for me to do that well.
We had another question about your computer setup, which I know we kind of talked about early on. And since you have been traveling and working remotely, you're on the laptop now. What's it normally like?
Let me grab
what's
this.
It like now? Oh, yeah. We can actually see it.
Yeah. So right now I'm using this Alienware laptop, which has the 3070 GPU from NVIDIA, which is pretty good. So I've been operating off of that. NVIDIA just actually sent me a new laptop this week, so I'm going to be getting that kind of set up. But that's got the same GPU that my computer I built has. It's the Quadro RTX 5000 GPU, 48 gigabytes of RAM on that one, an Intel i7 CPU processor.
Okay, cool.
So pretty good. I mean, keeping it working. I think this one handles generally pretty well with scenes. I did a project with you guys for Facebook a couple weeks
Hmm.
ago. This one was chugging for that render. It was such
Oh,
a
I'm
dense scene
sure. I'm
in
sure.
360 that it was tough to kind of to plug it out. But it did handle pretty well, and I was able to kind of optimize some things with textures so that it wouldn't kind of run out of
I
memory.
mean, yeah, that's pretty amazing that you can pull that off, on that machine. So for anyone looking to work, off a laptop on the beach, I think that that's the move.
Yeah, that's the vibe right now. I mean, hey, it works. Like if you can, swing
I
it.
know, I know. Well, I'm so glad you're out here in California. What do you got going on when you're not working?
I go for a lot of runs. I very
Cool.
much enjoy the outdoors, going for hikes and stuff.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah, being by the beach. I've not gotten into surfing yet. I know you do that, but I've been like, I played hockey growing up for a lot of my life, so I'm kind of used to like the balance aspect a little bit, but like
Totally.
for like more roller skates kind of stuff,
Oh yeah,
rolling
I mean,
inline stuff.
actually, funny enough, I grew up playing hockey too.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
So
I didn't know.
I mean, in Colorado, I grew up playing ice hockey. So the rollerblading,
Yeah.
roller skating scene on the beach is like so
Huge.
perfect.
That's more what I mesh with. I feel like I do more of
Yeah,
that than the surfing. I feel like there's no easy way here to kind of just get into it. I'm from the
it's
East
just
Coast, so
yeah,
like
it's
the
just
only
dive in.
yeah, the waves I had growing up there were like no larger than like a couple inches, or like a couple feet. I don't know, but coming out here and then seeing like these like huge waves, it's super intimidating. Just
It's
like
cool.
gotta
It's
get to it.
cool though. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
wherever you are, take advantage of the outdoor stuff that you have, and California is pretty special for that. What advice would you give to anyone that's like starting out or wanting to maybe be where you are in a year or two, or that like maybe hasn't dabbled in 3D or is super new to it? Do you have any like, I don't know, advice or thoughts or things that might really help them that you kind of learned along the way?
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say is like a kind of a philosophy to have going through it. Like never feel like there's going to be a point where you'll know everything. Like kind of looking at 3D at face value, there's so many different ways you can go with it, so many different avenues. I've kind of carved out my own trajectory with it, but don't be intimidated by the software. Just keep learning and just getting better. You'll, look back in a year and see all the progress that you've made.
Yeah,
And just there's still so much to continue doing. I think not comparing yourself too much to others as well. Like definitely be
totally.
inspired by others, but don't compete with other people. I think that's what kind of you can start playing head games with yourself, numbers games, if you're
Yeah,
looking to kind of grow as a YouTuber, Instagrammer, what have you. Um, and now that like NFTs are a big thing too, like you can really see, how much people are making and stuff too, which is,
yeah,
I think, great that artists are getting rewarded, but at the same time, I think it's tough for people to see like, oh, that person's making so much more money than me, whatever. Like, just don't think about that at all. I think it's just important to focus on art for the sake of creating art. And if it ever is not that, I think that it's always time to kind of take a step back and refocus, recenter before, picking up the pen again and picking up the mouse again and keeping going.
totally. Yeah, totally. I think, yeah, I mean, it's a practice and it should be a personal practice, for it to be successful. I think that that's super important, that the basis of it is, authentic, and obviously that you love doing it and that it's not a stressful process, especially
Yeah.
if you keep developing work and you keep, figuring out your voice and your style, that will be what's noticed. Like you've really developed your style and you've really found, this visual direction that you're known for. Like I can definitely spot your work out, and I think that that is something that you've probably just focused on internally about what do I want to create, what am I creating, what am I putting my time into, that practice.
Yeah, that's been a big struggle for years now. I feel like I started with photography on Instagram. I was very much like a photo Instagrammer for a while. And I felt like I had a style of sorts, but it didn't feel like I had as much ownership of it that I wanted. So like going into 3D and having that much more control of lighting,
Hmm.
composition, everything
Oh
really
yeah,
allowed me to kind of just experiment so much more and kind of really come to a style that I feel like is my own. And it's awesome that you can recognize it now. That means I'm doing my
totally.
job right and I'm getting in the right direction. So that's
Totally.
awesome to hear.
Yeah, that's important. Shadowstone wants to know, what is the thing you love most about your work? So I'm going to say, what's the thing you love most about your work at NASA and doing the 3D renders that you do?
Yeah. So for NASA, I think it's seeing the science as it happens live and then getting to kind of translate that to something exciting for the public. I mean, a lot of the stuff we
So cool.
work with is primary source literature, so like super technical papers a scientist will hand me and say, just go. And so kind of trying to digest that and figure out what the story is that people resonate with is really a challenge, but I feel like it's so exciting because it gives so much kind of creative freedom to come up with cool projects.
So cool.
I've done some cool animations, like cartoon style, Spider-Verse style things with it. So I feel like kind of finding that translation aspect is really cool for the NASA stuff I do. And then for freelance, I think like making something that resonates with someone on a deeper level is really cool, and kind of seeing the reactions people have, especially in the time of COVID when everything's been so uncertain, so terrifying, and just having a moment, you know, just to take a breath and relax as you're scrolling through your feed and just seeing all the chaos of the world, just to take a step back, take a breath, meditate. That's been awesome to see, and kind of having that reaction, I think, has been the most rewarding, coolest aspect of the work I've been doing freelance.
Yeah, your work can definitely be a really nice pause, you know, like a really nice, I mean, as like a meditative escape, I think that that could be something that people spend time in, you know, or with. Just make it an endless loop with like a little bit of natural sounds or whatever. And I mean, that's a really nice, calming, peaceful space. And I think that that's huge, you know, especially the world needs that for sure.
Yeah. If Calm, like the Calm app, is ever doing like a 360 VR immersive environment thing, I'm all for like designing stuff for that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would be super cool. Let me tap into some other questions that we got. How do you deal with a creative rut? Do you ever get like creative block and don't know what to do?
All the time, like every single day.
Every day.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty common thing, and you can ask any creator. I think this is pretty, you know, typical to happen. I think just looking for inspiration in the outdoors again is always my way of kind of getting out of things. You know, looking through other work that I see too is definitely inspiring as well. Listening to music, just taking a step back. I mean, I feel like I'll hit ruts pretty typically, like, you know, a couple times a week, and just knowing when to keep going and when to kind of turn off the computer and take some time, get a coffee, whatever.
I think that it's a thought that, you know, artists are just always inspired, but to be honest, over, you know, the entire course of my life and career, I have to like seek out inspiration. You know, I have to like go outside or go for a walk or go to a gallery or go to a museum or read a book. You know, like you kind of have to put yourself in those situations to be like, oh, that's really beautiful, that's really cool. You can't really just like sit around and wait for it to happen.
Yeah, it's an active process for sure. And like returning to like the mood board that like a client's given for sure is like definitely helpful too, to kind of keep on track. And something will pop out to me. It's kind of like I Spy almost. It's like, oh my God, how did I miss that thing from the beginning? Like that's a cool way to go based off that like color palette or whatever.
Do you have any favorite foliage that you render, or that you, I don't know, flowers or grass or nature stuff? I feel like you're pretty versed in the nature stuff.
I love palm trees. I feel like for me, I've always been obsessed with them because I don't see very many of them where I grew up. You know, I'm from Philadelphia, so, you know, we suffer through a lot of harsh winters and brutal summers, but we don't have a lot of palm trees. So coming out to California, and, you know, I spent a lot of time in France as well too. In the south of France, there are quite a few. There always are like kind of Dr. Seuss-esque to me, kind of like otherworldly. It's like how is this tree like a thing? Like this is so cool.
Do you ever see like the really, 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 really tall ones, and you're just like, how does it even stand? Like, how is it just there?
And they're so satisfying to look at. Yeah, that's always, and seeing people like trimming them too, like scaling these things and like cutting the leaves off there. That's crazy. I always love seeing those. And I think like rendering those as well is the most exciting. I love doing that. And I love succulents too, and bonsai trees. I've got a couple bonsai trees I'm nursing back in Philly. My parents are taking care of them right now for me, but they're really cool trees as well. Like there's a really cool Japanese garden up in Portland, Oregon, that they've got a bunch of like super old, like I think like 100, 200-year-old ones that are just beautiful. It's always so cool to see how they grow and how you maintain them. But
I don't know much about bonsais, but I do love the, you know, all of the foliage that we have out here in California. And if you come up to LA, the Huntington grounds, the Huntington Library has amazing grounds of a bunch of different kind of, I guess it would be like geographical landscapes. I don't know. Cool though, super cool.
Sweet.
I would love to see your work. I would love to see you create like a full like cannabis field scape, like get into the cannabis industry and just like really nail that kind of like meditative zone. I think that that would be kind of beautiful. So
Yeah, it seems like that's been huge recently. So yeah, it
cannabis
seems
is
like
big.
taking
So
off.
shout out to all the cannabis clients that would like James to, you know, model out their plants. I think that that would be beautiful. Um, let's see what else. What do you got going today? Anything else you want to shout out or say? I think we'll shout out your tutorials on YouTube again. For anyone that's interested in learning more about James's process and maybe some tips and tricks in there. Anything else you want to add? Plugs? What else we got going on?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, a couple cool projects coming up for NASA stuff that's coming out soon. There's one mission I've been working a lot on. We're making kind of like a cartoon style video for it, which is a lot of fun. And then another one, we just got selected actually this mission to go to Venus again. So I'm
Oh my
working as
God.
like one of the head communicators on that.
So cool.
So yeah, lots of exciting stuff happening there.
So
And then yeah,
cool.
for freelance and the stuff you see on Instagram, just keep an eye out for the VR stuff. I'm working kind of behind the scenes here to make it happen. Shout out to the people who support on Patreon. I saw someone post a message in here that they just got one of my prints that I have up there, which is awesome.
So cool.
Really appreciate your support. It means a lot. Yeah. Always looking for new suggestions if anyone ever has any. Feel free to shoot me a message. Always happy to chat.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm gonna close this out here and thank everyone for joining us and listening in. We're gonna save this conversation on our feed and feel free to share it, rewatch it again. There's a lot of good information in there from James. And of course, if you don't follow James already, you can find him on Instagram. You could find him on the web. You can find him on YouTube. We do have some pretty fun, exciting projects to look out for that James and H Plus have put together coming up. A couple NFT drops, a couple opportunities for you to be one with James's naturescapes. And yeah, thank you all so much for joining. James, thank you so much for the 45 minutes, hour of your time today, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, always a pleasure. It's awesome.
Thank you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye bye.